So a new NBA trade target has emerged as we are getting closer to that December 15th deadline. A lot of hype around some of these bigger names. The question is, should the Sixers go out and lock in on this player? Should this be the potential acquisition of the season? And realistically, do they even have enough assets to try to get it done? We'll talk about all that and break it down, but welcome into Philly Take with RB. We cover the Sixers every single day. All I ask is that you go down below and leave a like if you enjoy this video. Subscribe to our channel, subscribe on all audio platforms, and drop us a review, man. Drop us a comment as we continue to break it all down. Real quick breaking news, the Philly City Council this morning gave preliminary approval to legislation which will allow the Sixers' proposal to build a new arena in Center City, aka the 76 place that we talked about a couple months ago. They said they're staying in Philly, but it seems like this new arena will be on the way in 2031. They will go through a couple more steps here next week for final approval, but looks like we're getting there, so buckle up. It looks like the Sixers are going to have a new arena in Center City. Give me your thoughts down below, but we really got to jump into what we're here for today, and that is the trade news. Now, in this last couple of days, even the last 48 hours, the trade speculation is going insane. Here's one big example, as Shams has been putting out a bunch of trade tweets, and Jimmy Butler is apparently having a sweepstakes now. There's a bunch of teams interested in Jimmy. Seems like he could be on the way out in Miami. Now, on the flip side, you had Jimmy's agent, which was insane, come out here on Twitter and pretty much go right at Sham, saying, I gave you a pass, I was busy, but if you don't stop putting my name on your complete and made up BS, you normally aren't worth my time. So, maybe agents are starting to get pissed off. Maybe Sham should not have put this info out about some of these guys, but nonetheless, the hype is starting to heat up. And on December 15th, all the guys that signed in the offseason become available to be traded. Then we have the January 15th deadline for the guys that were re-signed become available to be traded. So this next month, it seems like we're getting an early start this year with a lot of these names, being talked in potential moves. But the biggest name of the day is Herb Jones. Herb Jones and CJ McCollum receiving interest on the trade market per Shams. He says the Pelicans are currently 5-20, last place in the West, and now Ingram is out indefinitely with a significant low left ankle sprain. Zion is out. The Pelicans' 3 All-Stars, Ingram, Williamson, and Murray, have yet to play together. Teams have already started expressing interest in the Pelicans supporting cast like Jones and McCollum. So, look, as bad as it's been for the Sixers, I guess we could always be the Pelicans, right? I mean, where does that sound familiar? They haven't gotten on the floor. Literally, their top 8 players were injured at one time. It is bad to be a Pelicans fan right now. And in addition to that, NBA Central puts this out. The Mavericks are the favorites to land Herb Jones in a potential trade per Bovada official. And I know the Sixers are not on this list. The Mavs, Grizzlies, Bucks, Rockets. But at the end of the day, the Sixers are going to be interested in almost any trade piece right now. That's how they set up this season. And usually these tweets aren't even accurate anyway. Like, there's always a couple sleepers, that come in and swoop right in. So Herb Jones, does he make sense for the 76ers as a potential trade target? Well, I think there's multiple layers to this. And I want to start off by just talking about the Sixers in general, because they've won 4 out of the last 5. There's some people who want to buy all the way back in, and there's some people who say, no, not believing it yet, and we have to wait and see. I think I'm right in the middle. Like, I don't really know how to feel about this team. I need to see Joel Embiid, Paul George, and Tyrese Maxey play a consistent stretch. It can't just be one game, where they show glimpses of potential. They actually have to do this for several games, many games, before I can buy back in. But the prospect of them fitting and gelling together, it does show a lot of potential. But really, I think the last 5 games have been predicated by the defensive side of the basketball. Like, if you look here, the 76ers are now up to 8th in team defense in terms of points allowed. That's better than the Celtics, the Knicks, and the Cavs. So really, as we've mentioned on the last, 5 post-game shows or so, the Sixers are starting to really buy into that identity defensively, and that's really been a staple of Nick Nurse. And we were very surprised because for like 8 to 10 games, the Sixers would literally give up on the defensive side of the ball. Like, it would come to the third quarter, start of the fourth, they'd already be out of the game, embarrassed, ran off the floor, and they weren't playing any defense. So it has shown me over the last couple of games that they're willing to fight for this coach, willing to fight for this team, and they've really bought in on the defensive side of the ball. Now, on the offensive side, they're still at the bottom, second to last. And funny enough, they're only ahead of the New Orleans Pelicans by 0.2. And they're near the bottom in every offensive category. So defense has really been what they are predicated on. And that fits right into the strengths of Herb Jones. So if you don't know who this guy is, second round pick back in 2021. He's 26 years old. He made his first All-NBA defensive team this past year. And he is one of the best defenders in the NBA. But we look at his numbers this year. He's played 7 games. He's also been injured a bit as well. And this season, he's shooting 29.2% from three. He's averaging 10.7 points per game. Last year, he shot 41% from three and 11 points per game. So definitely a dip there this season. I don't think there's been as big of a sample size. Last year, you were starting to see the potential like, wow, this guy could really be that 3-and-D next man up in the NBA. And this guy could win multiple Defensive Player of the Year awards, throughout his career. So I like Herb Jones. He's a guy who can defend every position. He's a guy who can do some of that dirty work, right? Get his hands dirty, help out on the perimeter, create transition points, just make things easier, especially when the Sixers like to play quicker with Tyrese Maxey, with Jared McCain. And I think he's a great fit. However, I would warn against overrating the guy so much that you're willing to dump the entire tank of assets for this player. And when it comes down to some of these teams involved, I think number one, they probably have better young players that they can offer in a trade, and they probably have more favorable assets that they can offer as well. Now, the Sixers definitely have a haul of assets, especially the ones they acquired in the Clippers trade. So the Sixers could go and dump a bunch of top picks on Herb Jones and try to go get this guy. But you also have to consider it from the other team's mentality sometimes. I feel like we get into this one-sided thinking where we think about the Sixers' needs, but what about the Pelicans, right? I mean, if they decide to blow up their nucleus, then yeah, they want as many young picks as they can get. But they're probably going to want to find some of those younger players as well, guys that they can bank on in the future. And right now, I just don't know what the Sixers can offer other than Jared McCain and Tyrese Maxey, but those guys are untouchable. So if we look at Herb Jones, this guy's making just under $13 million this season. He's on a really team-friendly deal. And I mean, this is a bang for your buck type of contract. Now, based on where the Sixers are at, they're in the first apron with the new CBA. They cannot take back more salary than they would send out in a trade. So right now, if you look at some of these players, Kelly Oubre making $7.983 million. KJ Martin making $7.975 and Andre Drummond making $5 million. I mean, KJ and Drummond fall slightly below that Herb Jones figure, which is $12.976. But I mean, Kelly Oubre and Andre Drummond could definitely be, a package there. What about KJ Drummond and maybe another salary filler, maybe Eric Gordon or please Kyle Lowry, get him out of here. That's really how I could see this trade shaping up if they did it along with a bundle of picks. There's always going to be that one team that overpays and they swoop in and offer, 2-3 first-round picks. So my question is it worth it? Is Herb Jones going to put this team over the top where you're willing to give up all those tradable assets to get this guy? And I think when you look at the 76ers, the need coming into the season for me was they need a power forward, a traditional power forward who can rebound and who can just play next to Joel. And although he hasn't been perfect, I think Gershon Yabusele has gone above and beyond and has really exceeded expectations. And I do think he can kind of fill that void, at least for the rest of the season. So right now, I would say my number one need has shifted to a backup playmaker, a backup guard. Kyle Lowry cannot continue to play for this team. And I think they need another guy who can handle the rock, come in off the bench and just control that unit, especially if they decide to put Jared McCain back in the starting five. And if you look at the Sixers draft picks, I mean, they have 2 firsts coming up in 2026, but one of them is via OKC, Houston, or the Clippers. They don't have a first-round pick this year unless it falls in the top 6. It's a protected pick from that Al Horford trade years ago. And they don't have a lot of favorable assets over the next couple years. Yes, they have the 2028 first via the Clippers, and people would be willing to throw that in. Look, if you can get Herb Jones for maybe a young player and a first-round pick, I would definitely do that. But I don't think you should throw 3 first-round picks and multiple young pieces to get this guy, even with his defensive ceiling, even with how good he is on that side of the ball. The Sixers have had defensive specialists over the last 5 years who never pan out because they can't develop an offensive game. And Herb Jones is never going to blossom into that offensive superstar caliber player. When you think about the fit with the 76ers, you're bringing Herb Jones in to probably play the 3 because he doesn't rebound well enough to play the 4. I still think the Sixers could add some more rebounding at the trade deadline in their starting 5 because Yabusele really isn't that big of a rebounder either. Herb Jones averages about 3.5 rebounds per game. So I still think they're going to need more. And as good as he is defensively, you know, you're bringing him in and he can't shoot as well as Kelly Oubre. He doesn't have enough offense in his game right now. So at the end of the day, I would love Herb Jones on this team, but I think that other teams will be able to outweigh the Sixers in trade packages when it comes to some of these young guys. And they would probably be willing to throw in more first-round picks than the Sixers will. I still think KJ Martin will get traded this season, and I do not want this team to overrate him. He's been playing well and playing himself potentially right into a trade. And if they ever could get Herb Jones at the right price, I think it makes a lot of sense, but it's just hard for me to see that right now if the Pelicans even decide to move on from one of their better young players. They would also have to be interested in moving a guy that they could probably see being a part of their future. So that's where I'm at with this Herb Jones thing, but give me your thoughts down below. Do you want the Sixers to trade for him? Could you see it happening? What would you give up? Give me all your thoughts. Appreciate everybody for tapping in. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And that being said, I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.